Rain tapped the narrow windows of Cascadia County Medical Center, turning Tacoma into a smear of gray. Inside, the air tasted like antiseptic and old coffee. Fluorescent panels buzzed overhead. Dr. Ava Carter moved through the supply corridor with a clipboard hugged to her side. She opened a cabinet and rebuilt the shelf with a surgeon's patience. Gauze stacked flush. IV kits facing forward. Saline bags counted twice because the second count was never for the hospital. It was for her. Footsteps came fast behind her. Carter, a voice called. Dr. Tyler Brooks slid past with a paper cup and his phone. He did not look at her. Trauma bays out of 4x4s. Fix it. Ava latched the cabinet. I'm on it. He was already gone. At the morning huddle, Dr. Howard Klein pointed at the assignment board. Charting updates are yours, Carter. Keep it simple. A couple of residents smiled into their cups. Not cruel, just easy. The day stayed ordinary until it did not. A gurney slammed through the ER doors, wheels squealing, a man in his 40s clawing at his throat. His face was turning blue. A monitor shrieked. V-fib, someone shouted. Pads now. Brooks froze at the bedside, hands hovering. Ava stepped in. 2 fingers to the carotid. Fast pulse. She leaned closer and listened. The sound was thin, wrong, like air scraping past a closed door. Airway, she said. Brooks blinked. What do you mean? Ava tilted the man's head, opened his jaw, and reached in. Her fingers met something deep and slick. She hooked it and pulled. A chunk of meat slid free into her gloved palm. The man bucked, then sucked in a hard, ragged breath. Color returned to his cheeks. The monitor settled into a steady beat. For a second, the room stayed still. Then everyone moved again, talking louder than they needed to, as if volume could erase panic. Brooks cleared his throat. Lucky catch, he muttered. Ava peeled off her gloves and dropped them into the bin. No argument. No lecture. She washed her hands until the water ran cold. When she turned off the faucet, her sleeve rode up just enough to show a thin, clean scar at her wrist. She tugged the cuff down without looking at it. In the locker room, she opened her metal compartment. Her jacket hung inside. On top sat a faded cloth tab frayed at the edges. Ranger Medical. Her phone vibrated once. Unknown number. 1 line. Captain Carter. Ava stared at the words, then locked the screen with her thumb. Before we continue, I would love to know where you are watching from. Drop your city or country in the comments. Ava slid her phone into her pocket as if it were a live wire. The locker door clicked shut. Metal against metal. Final. She stood there a moment longer than she needed to, listening to the building. The hospital never truly went quiet. Even in the locker room, you could hear it breathing through the vents. Hear a distant monitor chirp. Hear cartwheels rattle over the seam in the floor like a nervous tick. She washed her hands again anyway. When she stepped back into the corridor, the air felt colder than before. Or maybe it was just her skin remembering the touch of that message. Captain Carter. The rest of the shift moved the way shifts always moved when you worked hard and tried not to be noticed. Small tasks, quiet compliance, being useful without taking up space. Ava updated charts at a corner workstation near radiology, where people passed by too fast to stop and talk. She typed with the same measured rhythm she used to count pulses. She did not gossip. She did not complain. She did not ask to be put on trauma. A young resident leaned over her shoulder once, smelling faintly of peppermint gum. You missed a checkbox, he said. Ava looked at the screen. The box was checked. It is checked, she replied. He blinked, then moved on as if she had not spoken. Around midday, Tyler Brooks crossed the hall with a swagger that looked better from far away. Up close, you could see the tension around his mouth. He stopped near the nurse's station and spoke loudly enough for anyone within 15 feet to hear. We got lucky earlier, he said to a group of interns, lifting his cup like a toast. Clean save. Ava kept her eyes on the chart in her hand. A mother in Bay 7 asked her soft and hopeful if her son's stitches would scar. Ava crouched so they were eye level. A little, she said, voice gentle. But the skin heals better than you think. The boy was 7 freckles across his nose. He watched her with that serious focus children have when they decide whether you are safe. "Will it hurt later?" he asked. "It might," Ava said. "We can handle hurt." The mother relaxed. She thanked her. Ava nodded once and backed out of the room. The gratitude followed her into the hall like a warm hand on her shoulder, and she shook it off without meaning to. At 3, Dr. Howard Klein called for a quick review of staffing assignments. It was not a meeting in a room. It was a conversation that happened standing up in motion, as if time itself were impatient. Carter Klein said, scanning his tablet. "Supply counts are behind. I need you on inventory after you finish those notes." Ava's pen paused. The word inventory sat there like a weight. "I can cover triage if you need an extra set of hands," she offered. The sentence came out calm. It was not a plea. It was an option. Klein did not look up. "We already have coverage." Inventory Carter. Tyler walked past behind him, smirking at nothing in particular. Ava lowered her eyes to the chart again. Understood. She did the inventory the way she did everything. Thorough. Silent. Exact. She checked expiration dates, counted sealed boxes, logged lot numbers. Most people treated supply rooms like closets. Ava treated them like lifelines. The plastic wrap of a sterile kit crackled under her fingers. For half a second, Tacoma vanished. Heat bloomed behind her eyes. Dust. Canvas walls snapping in wind. A generator's low growl steady until it was not. A voice somewhere yelling coordinates. The bite of iodine. Her own hands moving with a speed that did not feel like hers. Ava swallowed. The hospital returned pale and humming. She set the kit back on the shelf with care and forced herself to breathe. 4 in. Hold. 6 out. The counting worked. It usually did. A nurse stepped into the doorway as Ava finished labeling a bin. She was older than most of the staff, with silver threaded through her dark hair and a posture that said she had spent years on her feet and had learned where to put the weight so it would not break her. Nurse Elaine Parker. Elaine held 2 cups of coffee. She offered one without ceremony. "You look like you forgot to eat," Elaine said. Ava accepted the cup. It was warm through the paper. "I ate." Elaine raised an eyebrow, not convinced, then glanced at the shelves. "You organize like you are expecting a storm." Ava took a sip. The coffee was bitter and too hot. "It is an emergency room." Elaine's mouth curved almost a smile. "Most people in this place organize like they are expecting somebody else to fix it." Ava looked back down at her clipboard. "Somebody has to fix it." Elaine leaned her shoulder against the doorframe. She did not crowd. She did not push. She simply stayed as if she had learned that silence was sometimes the only way people told the truth. "You handled that airway earlier," Elaine said. Ava's grip tightened on the cup. It was a partial obstruction. Elaine nodded slowly. "Most people still freeze." Ava kept her face neutral. "I do not freeze." "I noticed," Elaine said. A cart rolled by in the hall. Someone laughed near triage. The building kept breathing. Elaine's eyes flicked to Ava's hands. Not the hands themselves, but the steadiness, the economy of motion, the way Ava moved through a task without wasting a gesture. "Where did you train?" Elaine asked. "University of Washington," Ava said. She chose it because it was close enough to be believable and far enough to end the conversation. Elaine did not correct her. She did not argue. She only watched Ava for a beat longer than most people would have. "You have a way about you," Elaine said. "Like you are used to noise and panic and people shouting orders." Ava stared at a line of printed numbers on her clipboard until they blurred. "Every ER is noise and panic." Elaine's voice stayed even. "Not like that." Ava set the coffee down on a shelf and snapped the clipboard closed. The sound was sharper than she intended. "I should get back," Ava said. Elaine pushed off the doorway. "Sure," she replied. "Just do not break yourself trying to be small." Ava did not answer. Elaine left the supply room and her footsteps faded. Ava exhaled slowly. The crackling plastic on the shelf seemed louder now, like it was waiting. She finished the counts. She signed her name at the bottom of the form with precise letters that looked like they had been rehearsed. She turned in the clipboard at the charge desk. Tyler was there laughing with a resident, a pen tucked behind his ear. He glanced at Ava as she approached, eyes sliding over her as if she were part of the wall. "Inventory done?" he asked. "Yes," Ava said. He took the form without looking at it. "Good. Oh, and Bay 9 needs more gauze. 4-inch pads. Go ahead and restock." Ava nodded once. She did not argue. She walked away. That was the trick, she reminded herself. Do the work. Keep moving. Do not let them pull you into their version of you. By 6, her shift ended. The sky outside was already dark, the kind of early winter dark that turned the parking lot lights into cones of pale yellow. Ava changed in the locker room, scrubs folded jacket on. The phone felt heavy in her pocket, even when it did not buzz. Her apartment was a few miles away, a small place above a closed bookstore, quiet enough that she could hear the pipes creak when the heat kicked on. She turned the lock, stepped inside, and closed the door behind her. The space was clean, spare, almost staged. A couch, a table, a single mug on the counter. No photos. No magnets on the fridge. No proof that anyone had ever been here long enough to matter. She set her keys down and stood in the center of the room as if waiting for instructions. Then she noticed the watch on her wrist. The glass was cracked at the edge, a spiderweb fracture that never spread and never healed. The hands moved, but the second hand stuttered, sometimes catching for a breath, then continuing. It was an old habit to look at it when she felt her throat tighten. Ava removed the watch and placed it on the table. Under the lamp, the crack glinted like a thin blade. She filled a kettle, lit the stove, and watched the flame. The blue steadied her. When the water boiled, she poured it over a tea bag and let the steam rise into her face. She stood by the window and watched cars pass on the wet street below, headlights sliding through puddles. Her phone vibrated. Ava did not reach for it right away. She waited until the vibration stopped, until the silence returned, then picked it up with 2 fingers. Unknown number. Captain Carter. Her pulse jumped. She scrolled down. A second message followed, shorter. Talk. Ava stared until the letters seemed to press into her skin. She blocked the number. She deleted the thread. Her thumb moved with certainty, the way it had learned to move under pressure. When the screen went blank, she felt a hollow relief that lasted about 3 seconds. Then her chest tightened anyway. She set the phone face down. The tea cooled, untouched. That night, she lay in bed with the lights off, listening to the rain. Sleep came in short pieces. In one of them, she was back under canvas, the air hot and metallic, and somebody kept shouting for suction. In another, she was in the supply corridor at Cascadia, opening a sterile kit again and again, while the plastic snapped like gunfire. When morning arrived, it did not bring quiet. It brought fluorescent light and the same smell of antiseptic that never quite left your clothes. Ava returned to the hospital early. She liked the first hour, before the day fully woke up, before the jokes started, before anyone decided who mattered. She took the back hallway to the supply corridor. The shelves waited. The boxes waited. The calm work waited. A young nurse stepped into the corridor while Ava was checking a bin of catheter kits. He had a new badge and a careful smile. "Hey, Dr. Carter," he said. "I am Nate. I just started last month." Ava nodded. "Morning." Nate watched her for a moment, then looked down at the shelves. "You always keep this place perfect." "It is easier to find things when you need them," Ava said. Nate chuckled quietly. "True. My brother was in the army. He used to line up his cereal boxes." Ava kept her eyes on the expiration dates. "Smart habit." Nate hesitated. "Can I ask you something?" Ava's hand stopped on a sealed package. She did not look up. "Depends. You ever serve?" he asked. It came out soft, almost apologetic. Ava resumed moving. "No." Nate nodded as if he expected that answer. "Okay. Sorry. It is just the way you move. Like you have done this in worse places." Ava slid the package back into its bin. "This is a worse place," she said, dry enough that Nate laughed. "Fair," he replied. "See you out there." When he left, Ava stared at the door frame for a beat, then turned back to the shelf. The plastic wrap crinkled again as she opened a box of IV start kits. The sound was small, ordinary, nothing at all. Her breath caught anyway. She gripped the edge of the shelf until her knuckles blanched, and she counted silently 4 in hold 6 out while the hospital woke up around her. Ava stayed braced against the shelf until the tightness in her ribs eased. The plastic in her hands stopped sounding like something else. Her breath found its rhythm again, quiet and controlled the way you could do in a hallway, even when your body wanted to run. She sealed the box, set it back, and stepped out of the supply corridor. The emergency department had fully woken up. Phones rang at the front desk. A stretcher rolled past with a patient holding a bloody towel to his forehead. Someone laughed too loudly near the vending machines. Somewhere behind the trauma doors, a monitor chirped in a steady patient pattern. Ava drifted into her corner station and opened the charting system. She typed. She reviewed. She signed orders that someone else would claim later as teamwork. She kept her voice low and her movements smaller than her skill. It worked until it did not. Near late morning, a woman rushed in carrying a toddler on her hip. The child's cheeks were mottled red eyes wide, and wet lips working soundlessly like a fish pulled from water. The mother's voice was thin with panic. "He cannot breathe. Please, please." Tyler Brooks strode over fast, confident, already talking. Okay, we got you. Bring him to Bay 4. We need SATs." The toddler gagged once, then made a wheezing tight sound that barely counted as air. His little fingers clawed at his shirt. Ava was at the doorway before she realized she had moved. She saw the child's chest pulling hard. She saw the neck muscles straining. She saw the color, the kind of pale that comes right before blue. Elaine Parker appeared beside her, eyes locked on the boy. "He is working too hard," Elaine said. Tyler glanced at Ava. "You good with PEDs?" His tone made it sound like a dare. Ava kept her expression flat. "Yes." Tyler turned back to the child. "Any allergies, any history?" "He ate peanut butter," the mother said, words tumbling. "He started coughing, and then he just could not." Tyler reached for a stethoscope. "It could be anaphylaxis." "Get epi." Ava watched the child's jaw, watched the panic in his eyes, watched the tiny chest, failing to get enough air in. Anaphylaxis could do that. Yes, but the sound he was making was not the wet, swelling kind. It was a thin, high whistle, like air trying to squeeze past something that did not move. Ava stepped closer. "Look at his mouth," she said. Tyler frowned. "We are not doing that. He is anxious." Ava did not argue. She lifted the child's chin gently and used her penlight. A smear of peanut butter sat at the back of his tongue. His throat spasmed, with each attempt to inhale closing down in reflex. "Laryngospasm," Ava said, quiet and firm. "He is clamping shut." Tyler hesitated. His eyes flicked from the child to Ava. "So what, you want to intubate a toddler for peanut butter?" "No," Ava said. "I want suction, and I want him upright. Calm him. Oxygen. Then we treat the swelling if it shows." Elaine was already moving. "Suction on the wall," she called. "Bag ready." The mother clutched her child, trembling. Ava met her eyes. "Listen to me," Ava said, voice steady enough to borrow. "Hold him like you are holding him now. Keep his head turned a little. He needs air, and he needs calm. You are helping him." The woman nodded, tears streaming. Ava took the suction catheter from Elaine and cleared the thick smear gently. The toddler gagged, coughed, then sucked in a breath that sounded like life returning. The wheeze softened. His shoulders dropped a fraction. His eyes blinked like he had forgotten how. Elaine checked his saturation and gave Ava a quick look that said everything without words. Tyler swallowed. "Okay," he said louder than he needed. "Good. Good catch." Ava stepped back to let the team take over. Her hands did not shake. She watched the child's chest rise and fall more easily, then turned away before the relief could take root. At the workstation, she opened the chart and began typing orders with clean, precise clicks. Her hearing sharpened in the way it always did after a near miss. Every sound came in too bright. Every voice seemed a notch higher. Tyler approached with his cup of coffee and a posture that tried to look casual. "You are quick," he said. Ava kept her eyes on the screen. "So are most people when a kid cannot breathe." Tyler snorted, then softened it into a laugh. "Sure, just saying." His gaze dropped to her wrist as her sleeve shifted. The crack in her watch face caught the overhead light. Tyler stared a beat too long. That thing looks ancient, he said. Ava tugged her sleeve down. It keeps time. Tyler's mouth twitched. Does it? He walked away. Elaine waited until Tyler's footsteps were gone, then came to Ava's station. She did not hover. She stood slightly to the side so Ava could keep looking at the monitor if she wanted. That was clean, Elaine said. Ava's fingers continued moving. It was basic. Elaine gave a soft hum. Basic is not what I would call that. Ava clicked the final signature and logged out. He is okay. That is what matters. Elaine nodded once, then lowered her voice. I looked you up. Ava's shoulders did not move, but something behind her eyes tightened. Elaine went on calm and unhurried. Your license is valid. No problems. No flags. But it does not say University of Washington. Ava's throat went dry. She did not turn. Elaine's tone stayed gentle. It says Baylor, residency in Dallas. Then there is a gap. 3 years with no hospital affiliation. Then you show up here with a file that reads like somebody tried to make you ordinary. Ava turned at last. Her face was unreadable, but her eyes were sharp. Why are you digging into my history? Elaine held her gaze. Because I have been doing this a long time, and I know what skill looks like. I also know what hiding looks like. Ava's jaw worked once. She chose her words carefully. I took time away. Elaine did not press for details. From what? Ava let a small breath out through her nose. From medicine. Elaine's expression said she did not believe that, but she did not call Ava a liar. She only said, they are going to keep handing you the smallest jobs until they are forced to admit you are not small. Ava's voice went colder than she intended. I am fine where I am. Elaine's eyes did not flinch. Are you? Ava stared at her for a long moment. She could feel the edges of the day closing in the sense that people were watching even when they were not. Elaine, Ava said quieter, now I am here to work. Elaine nodded. I know. She glanced down the hall, then back. Just do not let them turn you into storage. Elaine walked away without waiting for an answer. Ava returned to charting, but the words blurred. Baylor. Dallas. The Gap. She had chosen Cascadia County because it was busy enough to swallow her. Because Tacoma was far from the places that remembered her name. Because a hospital that did not care to look too closely felt safe. Safe was a careful illusion. At lunchtime, she ate alone at a small table near the back of the break room. The television played a daytime talk show with the volume low. Someone's microwave beeped twice. A resident laughed at a joke Ava did not hear. Tyler came in with 2 interns trailing him. He spoke while he walked, talking about cases like they were trophies. You saw that kid earlier, he said loud enough for the room. It could have gone bad fast. We handled it. One of the interns nodded. Yeah, you were on it. Ava chewed her sandwich slowly, tasting nothing. Tyler's eyes slid to her, then away. He kept talking. Ava swallowed, wiped her hands, and stood to throw her trash away. She moved past Tyler without looking at him. The rest of the afternoon was a line of small injuries and small emergencies. An elderly man with chest pain that ended up being acid reflux. A teen with a split lip from a skateboard fall. A woman with a migraine who cried from relief when the medication finally worked. Ava did her job. She kept her voice soft. She kept her shoulders tucked in. She said the right things to scared people and the smallest possible things to coworkers. Near the end of the shift, Dr. Klein called her to the assignment board again. He was holding a tablet and wearing the expression he used when he thought he was being reasonable. Carter, he said, we need someone to update the triage templates. It has to be done tonight. Ava looked at him. I can help in trauma if you need coverage. We have 2 new residents and they are still adjusting. Klein's lips pressed together. That is not necessary. Tyler has trauma. You have documentation. Ava held her gaze on him. My scope covers trauma. Klein's eyes flicked away for a fraction, then returned. Your scope covers what I assign you in this department. Tyler was behind Klein, listening, pretending not to. His posture was loose, but his eyes were alert. Ava felt the familiar heat of it. Not anger, exactly. Something older, heavier. The sense of being trapped in a role that did not fit and being told to be grateful for it. Understood, she said. Klein gave a satisfied nod and moved on. Ava stayed by the board a beat longer, then walked back to her station. She opened the triage templates and began editing lines of text. It was careful work, the kind that mattered and the kind nobody thanked you for. Her phone buzzed once in her pocket. Ava's hand froze on the mouse. She did not pull it out right away. She waited until the vibration stopped, then checked the screen. Unknown number. Captain Carter. Her pulse rose swift and bright. She locked the screen without replying and slipped the phone back into her pocket. Across the department, Elaine Parker stood at the medication cart, sorting vials. She looked up and caught Ava's eyes for a second. Elaine did not move toward her. She did not ask questions. She only watched as if she had learned that sometimes the most supportive thing you could do was let someone keep their balance. Ava turned back to the triage templates. Her fingers moved again, steady and precise. Outside the narrow windows, the rain kept falling. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed on tireless and indifferent while Ava kept working in the place she had chosen to disappear. Ava kept her eyes on the triage templates, but the words would not settle. The cursor blinked like a pulse, steady and impatient. Her phone sat heavy in her pocket, quiet for the moment, but her body still felt the vibration that had not been there. Around her, Cascadia County Medical Center moved in its usual rhythm. A nurse called for transport. A resident argued about a lab value. Someone laughed near the charge desk, the laugh sharp enough to sound like it belonged to a different room. Ava saved her edits and closed the window. She stood, stretched her fingers once, and walked to the supply corridor. Busy hands were easier than busy thoughts. She checked gauze counts, restocked saline, lined up airway kits. She did it the way she always did, with a care that looked almost out of place in a building that lived on shortcuts. Tyler Brooks passed the doorway and slowed just long enough to glance in. "Still hiding back here," he said. Ava did not look up. "Still working." Tyler made a sound that could have been a laugh. "We have a trauma drill next week. Klein wants everyone sharp." Ava slid a box into place. "Good." Tyler lingered, then added, "Try not to scare the interns with your silent killer vibe." Ava finally met his eyes. "Try not to scare the patients with your ego." Tyler's smile faltered, then returned thinner. He walked away. Ava turned back to the shelf. Her hands were steady. Her breathing was steady. She told herself that was enough. The sirens hit an hour later. They started distant, a low wail swallowed by walls, then came closer, multiplying until the sound filled every corner of the department. Doors slammed. Wheels squealed. The ambulance bay lights flashed through the glass. "Multi-vehicle collision," a paramedic shouted as the first gurney burst through the double doors. "Interstate 5 near Fife. We have 3 critical, more incoming." The emergency department changed instantly. Ordinary noise became organized chaos. People moved with purpose, voices rising into commands. "Trauma 1 now. Get blood ready. Call radiology." Ava stepped back toward the wall automatically, the way she had trained herself to do here. Let the loud people lead. Let the system place you where it wanted. Tyler strode into the center like he owned the room. His voice cut through the noise, confident and fast. "Bring him into Trauma 1. We need airway. We need a chest tube kit. We need 2 large bore lines." The first patient was a man in his 40s, pale and sweating shirt, cut open, a jagged piece of metal protruding near his sternum. It looked like part of a steering column. The man's eyes were open, glassy, moving too slowly for the chaos around him. Elaine Parker was already at the bedside, snapping on gloves. She looked at Ava once. Not a request, not permission, just awareness. Ava moved closer, reading what the room was not saying. The patient's skin was gray under the bright lights. His breathing was shallow. His neck veins stood out. The monitor showed a heart rate racing, but the blood pressure numbers dropped with each update. Tyler reached for the chest tube tray. "Penetrating chest trauma," he said. "Left side decreased breath sounds. Chest tube." Ava watched the metal piece, the angle, the way the skin around it rose and fell like a tight seal. She saw how close it sat to the center of the chest, too close for Tyler's confidence. That is not a simple penetration, Ava said. Tyler did not look at her. Not now, Carter. Ava stepped closer, anyway, voice calm but firm. The sternum looks fractured. The metal could have moved the heart. If you put a chest tube in blindly, you could hit the wrong space. Tyler's hand paused above the tray. We do not have time for a lecture. Ava leaned in and listened to the patient's breath. She watched the skin color the pulse at the neck. Then she said the words that mattered. Get an ultrasound. Tyler turned, eyes flashing. We are not wasting time. We are wasting time already, Ava replied. The patient's head rolled slightly. His lips parted. A faint sound came out, more a sigh than a word. Elaine's voice cut in. Ultrasound now. A nurse hesitated, eyes flicking to Tyler. Elaine did not waver, no. The nurse ran. Tyler's jaw tightened. Fine, but we still need to decompress. Ava pointed to the metal. If the heart is being squeezed, a chest tube will not fix it. Another gurney rolled in behind them, a woman with a head wound, blood soaking the sheet. Trauma 2 filled. A resident shouted for help. The room pressed tighter, louder, hotter. The ultrasound machine arrived. Ava took the probe with steady hands. Tyler hovered at her shoulder. If you are wrong, you just delayed care. Ava did not answer. She placed the probe against the patient's chest and watched the screen bloom into grainy shapes. She adjusted the angle. She found the heart. Then she saw it. A dark ring fluid where there should not be fluid. The heart moved like it was trying to push against a closed fist. Her voice stayed low, controlled. There, fluid around the heart. Elaine leaned in and saw it too. Her face went still. Tamponade, she said. Tyler stared at the screen. His confidence flickered just for a moment, then tried to return. We can move him to the OR. He does not have that time, Ava said. The blood pressure dropped again. The monitor beeped sharper, faster, as if it was trying to warn them more loudly. Ava looked up at the nurse. Pericardiocentesis kit. And I need a syringe. The nurse blinked. A what kit? Ava's gaze did not move. Needle to drain the fluid around the heart. Now. The nurse looked at Tyler. Tyler's mouth opened, then closed. He had no order, ready, no plan that fit the new problem. Elaine stepped in, voice clear. Get it. Now. The nurse ran. Tyler turned to Ava, lowering his voice. You cannot just do that here. Ava kept her eyes on the patient. Yes, I can. The kit arrived. Ava opened it with quick, practiced motions. The plastic crinkled. The sound tried to pull her somewhere else, but she stayed here. She cleaned the skin just below the breastbone. She positioned the needle at an upward angle, careful, measured. The room's noise dulled not because the room was quieter, but because everyone had stopped talking. Tyler whispered, Ava, wait. She did not look at him. Hold his arm. Keep him still. Elaine took the patient's wrist and steadied it. Her grip was firm, reassuring. Ava slid the needle in. She moved slowly at first, then, with a tiny shift that was more feel than sight. She aspirated. Dark blood filled the syringe. The monitor changed. The heart rate slowed. The blood pressure rose in a clean jump. The patient sucked in a breath that sounded like he had been underwater. Color returned to his face. For a second, nobody spoke. Then the room came back to life, as if sound had been turned up again. Get him to CT, Elaine said. Now that he is stable. A nurse nodded and started moving. Tyler stared at Ava like she had pulled a card from a deck he did not know existed. Where did you learn that? Ava stripped off her gloves and dropped them into the bin. It is a standard procedure. Tyler's voice rose. Not here, it is not. Most of us have never done that outside a simulation lab. Ava washed her hands, eyes fixed on the water. Then you should do more than simulations. Tyler flinched. That is not what I meant. Ava turned off the faucet and dried her hands. The towel felt rough. Her skin felt too thin. Elaine stepped closer, voice quiet. That was incredible. Ava avoided her eyes. He needed it. Elaine did not argue. She simply nodded as if she understood that praise could feel like pressure. Ava stepped into the hallway. The fluorescent lights felt brighter than before. Faces turned as she passed. She heard fragments of voices, half sentences that stopped when she got too close. Did you see that? Who does that in an ER? Where did she come from? Her phone buzzed again in her pocket. She did not check it. Her hands were still steady, but she could feel a tremor building under the surface, small and insistent. She walked faster, not running, just moving with purpose toward a space where she could breathe. In the locker room, she shut the door and leaned against the cold metal. For the first time all day, her hands shook. Not much, but enough that she noticed. 4 in, hold, 6 out. Her chest resisted. The air felt too tight to move. She opened her locker with a quick twist. Her jacket hung inside. The faded Ranger medical tab at on the top shelf where she had left it frayed and unmistakable. She stared at it like it could speak. The door behind her opened. Elaine stepped in and closed it softly. She did not cross the room. She stayed near the entrance, giving Ava space. "You okay?" Elaine asked. Ava swallowed. "Yes." Elaine's eyes moved over Ava's face, the strain under the calm. "Your hands did not shake in there." Ava gave a short laugh that held no humor. "They do when nobody is watching." Elaine's voice stayed gentle. "Tyler is rattled. Klein is going to be worse." Ava's jaw tightened. "I did not do it to impress them." "I know," Elaine said. "You did it because he was dying." Ava closed her locker without pushing the tab deeper. The metal clink echoed in the small room. Elaine took a slow breath. "I am not asking for your story." Ava glanced at her. Elaine continued. "I am saying I saw what you did. I saw how you did it. That is not luck." Ava looked down at her shaking hands and forced them still by closing her fists. "It does not matter what it is." Elaine watched her for a moment, then nodded once. "It matters to the patient who is breathing. That is enough." The locker room door opened again harder this time. Ava did not turn, but she knew the footsteps. Measured. Decisive. Dr. Howard Klein filled the doorway, eyes sharp, mouth set. "Dr. Carter," he said. His voice carried the quiet edge of authority. "My office. Now." Ava pushed off the locker's shoulders, squared. Her hands were still. She walked past Elaine, then past Klein, and followed him into the bright hallway without a word. Dr. Howard Klein's office smelled like printer toner and lemon disinfectant. The blinds were half closed, cutting the afternoon light into thin stripes across his desk. A framed diploma hung behind him, the gold seal catching every flicker from the fluorescent ceiling panel. Klein did not sit right away. He shut the door with deliberate care, then turned and looked at Ava as if he were seeing her for the first time. "You performed a pericardiocentesis in my trauma bay," he said. Ava stood where he left her, hands at her sides, shoulders squared. The patient was crashing. "You did not consult the attending. You were not there." Klein's jaw tightened. He moved to his chair and sat, fingers steepled. "That is not how this department works." Ava's voice stayed even. "That is how a dying person works." For a moment, Klein's eyes flicked away, not in defeat, more like irritation at being cornered by the obvious. He tapped his pen once against the desk. "You have been here for months," he said. "You take inventory. You fix templates. You keep your head down. Then today, you step into a high-risk procedure with no hesitation and no tremor. That does not match the profile you have been presenting." Ava did not react to the word profile. Her face remained calm, but the muscles in her jaw held tight. "I did what I was trained to do," she said. "Where were you trained to do that?" Klein asked. "Because I can tell you right now, it was not here. Tyler Brooks has been talking about it for the past 15 minutes like it was a magic trick." Ava's gaze held steady. "I am board certified. My credentials are on file." Klein leaned forward. "Credentials tell me you can work in an emergency department. They do not tell me why you look like you have been doing battlefield triage since you were born." Ava's throat went dry. She kept her breathing quiet. 4 in, hold, 6 out. Klein's voice softened slightly, but the edge remained. "I am not trying to punish you. I am trying to protect my patients and this hospital. If you have advanced training, I need to know what it is." Ava stared at the striped light on his desk as if it were something she could step over. "I am qualified," she said. Klein watched her for a long beat. "Then help me understand why you have been letting people treat you like you are not." Ava's eyes lifted to his. The question landed too close to the truth. She kept her voice low. Because it was easier, she said. Klein's brows pulled together. Easier for who? Ava did not answer. She turned toward the door. Klein's chair creaked as he shifted. Dr. Carter, he said, sharper now. Do not walk out when I am speaking to you. Ava paused with her hand on the knob. She did not turn around. I am not walking out, she said. I am going back to work. She opened the door and stepped into the hallway. The emergency department felt louder than it had 10 minutes earlier. People were moving, talking, charting, laughing, in short bursts. It all sounded normal, but the way heads turned as she passed was not. Elaine Parker stood near the nurse's station with a medication tray. Tyler Brooks was there too, scribbling in a chart with a speed that looked like anger. Tyler looked up when Ava approached. His face had lost some color. His confidence was still there, but it sat less comfortably on him now. What did Klein say, he asked. Ava kept walking. Nothing I needed. Tyler took a step after her. You cannot just do whatever you want because you think you are the best one in the room. Ava stopped. She turned slowly, meeting his eyes. I did not do it because I thought I was the best, she said. I did it because you were about to hurt him. Tyler's mouth opened, then closed. For a second, he looked like a man trying to swallow his own pride without choking. Elaine's voice cut through, calm but firm. Enough. Both of you. Tyler's gaze flicked to Elaine, then back to Ava. He lowered his voice. Where did you learn that? Ava did not answer. She turned away again, moving toward the locker room, toward the place where she could put a door between herself and their questions. Her phone vibrated in her pocket, quick and insistent. She did not look at it. In the locker room, she opened her compartment and stared at the faded Ranger Medical tab on the top shelf. The frayed cloth looked small in the harsh light, like a scrap of something that had once been a whole life. She touched it with the tip of one finger and felt the thread catch slightly on her skin. Then she closed the locker. She stepped back out, trying to slide into the hospital's current the way she always did, letting it carry her along without friction. But the current shifted around her now. People were watching with a new interest, the kind that did not ask permission. The break room was quieter than usual. A television played with the sound off. A stack of paper cups sat near the coffee machine. Ava poured herself water, hands steady again, and stood by the counter. The door opened. The man who entered did not belong to Cascadia County Medical Center. Not by the way he moved. Not by the way he took in the room with a single glance, measuring distances and exits without looking like he was doing it. He wore a dress uniform that fit perfectly, ribbons pressed flat against his chest, his hair cut close and precise. He stopped when he saw Ava. His face changed just slightly, like relief had found him before he could stop it. Captain Carter, he said. The room went colder. Ava's fingers tightened around the plastic cup. Elaine appeared in the doorway behind the man, brows raised. Tyler drifted in after her, drawn by curiosity and the instinct to see who was taking up space. Ava kept her voice steady. You have the wrong person. The man took one step forward, not aggressive, not hesitant. Controlled. No, he said. I do not. Ava set the cup down. The plastic crinkled under her grip. The man's eyes held hers with a familiarity that made her skin prickle. Tacoma, he said quietly, as if saying it softly would make it safer. I have been looking for you. Ava forced air in through her nose. I do not know you. His mouth tightened with something that might have been pain. You do. Kandahar. 2019. Tyler made a small sound, half scoff, half disbelief. Kandahar. Elaine's gaze flicked to Ava, searching her face. The man kept speaking calm, unhurried, as if he were telling facts to a room that needed them. 75th Ranger Regiment. Convoy hit on the east route. I took shrapnel to the chest and a tension pneumothorax. You decompressed me in the back of a moving vehicle under fire. Ava's vision narrowed. The break room walls felt closer. The fluorescent light seemed to pulse. She heard suddenly the snap of canvas in wind, the grind of tires over dirt, the metallic taste of fear. Someone yelling for space. She swallowed hard. Tyler stared at her, now expression stripped bare. Dr. Carter, he whispered. Is that true? Ava did not look at him. Her eyes stayed locked on the man in uniform. His voice softened, not kind, not cruel, simply honest. "Colonel Matthew Harlan," he said. "You saved my life, Captain. I never forgot your face." Ava's throat tightened. She tried to speak and found only a thin rasp. "That person does not exist," she managed. Harlan did not move closer. He did not crowd her. He only nodded once, as if he had expected the denial. "They said you left," he replied. "No forwarding unit. No contact. No explanation. Then a name surfaced in a civilian roster, and I came to see if it was you." Elaine's voice came out quiet. "Ava." Ava flinched at the softness of her name. Harlan's gaze stayed on her. "I am not here to drag you anywhere," he said. "I am here because I owe you a debt I cannot pay. I came to say thank you." Ava's chest tightened so hard she thought it might crack. The cup of water sat untouched on the counter. Her hands were shaking again, visible now, impossible to hide. She backed away, chair legs scraping. The sound snapped the room awake. "I need to go," she said. She pushed past Elaine, then past Tyler, then out into the hallway, walking too fast. To be casual, too controlled to be running. Her shoes slapped the tile. She kept her eyes down. She did not want to see faces. The stairwell door was cold under her palm. She shoved it open and stepped into the concrete quiet. The air smelled like dust and paint. The sound of the hospital muted behind the thick door. Ava leaned against the wall, pressing her shoulder blades into the chill, as if she could anchor herself there. 4 and hold 6 out. Her lungs refused. She tried again, slower. 4 and hold 6 out. Her hands shook harder. She curled them into fists to stop them, but the tremor moved up her forearms anyway. The stairwell door opened. Ava did not turn, but she knew it was him by the weight of the footsteps. Harlan stopped a respectful distance away. "Ava," he said. "Do not," she replied. Her voice came out raw. "Do not call me that. Do not call me Captain. Do not bring any of that here." Harlan's tone remained steady. "I am sorry." Ava let out a short, sharp laugh that broke at the end. "Sorry for what?" "For finding me. For reminding me." Harlan took a slow breath. "For whatever made you feel like you had to disappear." Ava's eyes burned. She stared at the concrete floor at a dark stain near the base of the wall that could have been anything. Her voice came quieter. "I left because I could not carry it," she said. Harlan waited. He did not fill the silence. Ava's mouth tightened. The words fought their way out anyway, like they were tired of being trapped. "His name was Ethan Morales," she said. 19. Brown eyes. He had a stupid joke he kept telling everyone, even when he was scared. Her throat closed. She swallowed hard and kept going. "The generator failed," she whispered. The lights went out. 40 seconds. I had my hands inside his chest, and then I could not see. I lost the clamp. I lost the bleed. I lost him. Harlan's face shifted, grief passing through it like a shadow. He did not interrupt. He let her speak. Ava's voice cracked. "I have saved people. I know I have. But I remember every name I could not save. I remember the way their faces looked when they knew. I remember the silence after the monitor flattened." Harlan's eyes stayed on her, steady and present. "We all lost people," he said softly. Ava's head snapped up. Her eyes flashed. "Do not," she said. "Do not tell me it is part of the job. Do not tell me I did my best. I know what I did. I know what I failed to do." Harlan held his hands open at his sides, a gesture that asked for nothing. "I am not here to debate your pain," he said. "I am here because you mattered to me. You saved my life. You saved others. That is not erased by what you could not control." Ava's breath came in short pulls. She wiped at her eyes with the heel of her hand, angry at the wetness. "It does not feel like it," she said. Harlan's voice stayed gentle. "That man in your trauma bay today," he replied. "He is alive. He will go home. There is a family that gets him back." Ava stared at him. Her chest rose and fell, uneven. Harlan nodded once, as if sealing his purpose. "That is all I came to say," he added. "Thank you." He turned toward the stairwell door. Ava's voice followed him, quiet and strained. "Why did you really come here?" Harlan paused with his hand on the handle. He did not look back at first. I heard your name used like it did not mean anything, he said. I heard someone call your work luck. I could not leave it like that. He opened the door and stepped out. Ava stayed in the stairwell until the tremor eased. When she finally pushed the door open, the hospital noise rushed back in like water. People stared in the hallway. They tried not to, but they did. Whispered fragments drifted past her as she walked. Army, Ranger, Captain. Ava kept her head level and moved forward, each step measured. At the nurse's station, Klein waited with his arms crossed. His face looked different now, tighter around the eyes, as if a phone call had reached him like a slap. We need to talk, he said. Ava stopped. I already talked. Klein's voice stayed controlled, but the control had effort in it now. I just got a call from administration, he said. Colonel Harlan vouched for you. He gave them details they did not have. Ava said nothing. Klein's gaze held hers. Why did you not tell me, he asked, quieter. Why did you let me assign you to inventory for months? Ava's throat tightened again. She forced her voice to stay flat. Because I did not want to be seen, she said. Klein's mouth opened, then closed. He looked as if he had no response that would not expose him. Finally, he spoke. Well, he said, voice low, you are not unseen anymore. He turned and walked away, leaving Ava standing in the center of the corridor under buzzing fluorescent light, surrounded by motion and attention that felt heavier than any supply box she had ever lifted. Ava stood where Klein left her in the middle of the corridor, while the department flowed around her like water around a rock. The fluorescent light made everyone look a little sick. It made the polished floor shine like ice. People passed, then slowed, then pretended they had not slowed. She caught words that broke apart when she got close. Ranger, Army, Captain. She kept walking because stopping would turn those whispers into a wall. Elaine found her near the medication room, quiet as a shadow. She did not reach for Ava's arm. She just stood beside her, facing the same direction as if the hallway were something they both had to endure. I will not ask you to explain, Elaine said. But I want you to know something. Ava's eyes stayed on a cart rolling past. Say it anyway. Elaine's voice was calm. You are safe here. Ava let out a breath that almost sounded like a laugh. I do not feel safe anywhere. Elaine did not flinch. Then maybe it is time you stopped trying to feel safe and started trying to feel real. Ava turned her head just enough to look at her. Elaine's expression held no pity, only recognition. Ava swallowed. I have work. Elaine nodded once. I know. Ava returned to charting, to orders, to the clean boxes on the screen that pretended medicine was a set of tidy decisions. Her hands moved like they always did. Her face stayed composed. Only her body knew the truth. The tremor was still there, deep and waiting. In Klein's office, the door was shut. Through the small window panel, she could see him on the phone's shoulders, rigid. His face was tight, his voice lowered. He paced once, then stopped. He looked like a man trying to hold a lid down with one hand, while something inside the pot kept pushing up. Ava turned away before he could catch her staring. The afternoon dragged itself forward. The patient she had drained stabilized in intensive care. A nurse passed the update along, voice bright with relief, and the relief should have warmed Ava. Instead, it hit her like weight, a reminder that her hands still carried the power she had tried to bury. Around shift change, the air in the department changed. The chatter thinned. The front desk grew quiet. Even the usual arguments over beds and consults seemed to soften into a tense waiting. Ava felt it before she heard it. Engines, not the usual ambulance growl, lower, heavier, deliberate. She walked toward the glass doors near the ambulance bay. Rain streaked the panes. Outside, 3 black sport utility vehicles rolled in slow and perfectly spaced tires, cutting through shallow puddles. They stopped in a line as if they had rehearsed it. Doors opened in near unison. Men and women stepped out wearing dark suits that did not crease. Earpieces, focused eyes. The kind of posture that said the world moved when they arrived. Then a woman emerged from the second vehicle. Mid-40s hair pulled back tight, a badge clipped at her belt. She walked like she owned the wet pavement under her shoes. Not hurried, not hesitant. Certain. The ambulance bay felt suddenly too small. Staff gathered without meaning to. Nurses paused mid-conversation. A resident stopped with a chart half raised. Even Tyler, who usually filled space with his voice, went silent. The woman entered through the doors, and the department seemed to hold its breath. She went straight to the front desk. The receptionist, young and new, blinked like her eyes could not decide what to focus on. "Good afternoon," the woman said, voice smooth and firm. "I am Deputy Director Lauren Pierce. I am here for Dr. Ava Carter." The receptionist swallowed. I can page her." Pierce's gaze drifted past the desk down the hall, as if paging were unnecessary. Ava was standing at the far end, near radiology, still in scrubs, her arms at her sides. The distance between them felt like a hallway and a lifetime. Their eyes met. Pierce started walking toward her measured steps, no wasted movement. The suits behind her spread out slightly, not aggressive, just positioned. The kind of positioning you did when you wanted control, without visible force. Klein pushed through the crowd, face set. He moved fast enough that his coat flared behind him. "Excuse me," he said, voice tight. "This is a hospital. You cannot just walk in here with security and start making demands." Pierce turned her head toward him. She did not look annoyed. She looked patient, as if she had handled this exact resistance 100 times. "Dr. Klein," she said, reading his badge without glancing down. "Thank you for meeting me. I will be brief." Klein bristled at the familiarity. "Dr. Carter is employed here. If you have business with her, you can speak with administration." Pierce held his gaze. "Administration has already been notified." Klein's mouth tightened, notified of what? Pierce's eyes returned to Ava. Her voice did not change, but the words carried weight. "Dr. Carter holds a reserve commission in the United States Army Medical Corps." A murmur moved through the onlookers like a gust. Tyler's face went blank. Elaine's eyes narrowed, not surprised, just steady. Pierce continued, still calm. "Under Title 10 authority, she can be recalled for national security purposes." Klein's jaw clenched. "You cannot pull a physician out of a county trauma center because of paperwork. This is not a deployment depot." Pierce did not argue with the emotion. She answered with facts. "There was an attack on the United States consulate compound in Dakar this morning," she said. 43 casualties, 12 critical. The surgical team on site lost its trauma lead." The words did not land like news. They landed like metal. Ava felt her chest tighten. Not fear exactly. Recognition. The familiar shift of the world into triage categories. The numbers arranging themselves into faces she had not met yet. Pierce stopped a few feet from Ava, close enough that Ava could see the rain droplets clinging to the lapel of her coat. "Dr. Carter," Pierce said. Ava's voice came out low and controlled. "I am not active duty." Pierce nodded as if she expected that line. "Correct. You are not currently on active orders." Ava's eyes stayed level. "I declined reactivation." Pierce's gaze did not waver. That was before Dakar. Klein stepped forward again. "This is insane. She has rights. This is her civilian position." Pierce turned toward him, and her tone remained polite, but the politeness carried steel. "She does have rights," Pierce said. "And she also has obligations tied to her commission." Ava's fingers curled slightly at her sides. She could feel the crack in the watch face under her sleeve like a tiny pressure point. Pierce looked back at her. "A transport aircraft is staged at Joint Base Lewis McChord. Wheels up in 2 hours." 2 hours. Ava's mind moved fast. Faster than her face. 2 hours meant briefings on the way. 2 hours meant she would not have time to build walls. Elaine stepped closer, stopping beside Tyler. She did not speak, but Ava could feel her presence like a hand at her back. Tyler's mouth opened, then shut. He looked at Ava the way he had looked at the ultrasound screen earlier, as if the reality in front of him did not match the story he had been telling himself. Klein's voice dropped. "Ava, you do not have to do this." Ava blinked once. The sound of the department returned in fragments. A monitor beep, a cartwheel squeak, a distant cough. Ordinary life continuing while another place burned. Pierce watched Ava carefully. "We need you," she said, and for the first time, her voice carried something that sounded like a personal appeal, not just a directive. "They are bleeding. They are waiting. The team there is skilled, but they are short-handed. 12 are not stable. Ava's throat tightened. 12. Ava did not think of medals or titles. She thought of hands slipping on blood in bad light. She thought of a generator stuttering. She thought of 40 seconds that never stopped existing. She looked past Pierce at the staff, watching at the faces that had dismissed her, at the faces that had seen her, at the faces that had no idea what it cost to stay calm. Ava took one slow breath, then another. "I will need a few minutes," she said. Pierce nodded immediately. 15. Ava turned and walked, not rushing, not wavering. The crowd parted. Some people stepped back as if she carried heat. Others stood frozen as if they were afraid movement would make this real. She went to the locker room. The metal door swung open. Inside, her jacket hung in the same place. The faded Ranger medical tab sat on the shelf. She touched it once, then reached into the pocket and pulled out her cracked watch. She held it in her palm. The spiderweb fracture caught the light. She slid the watch onto her wrist and tightened the strap until it pressed into her skin. She did not want comfort. She wanted contact. On the shelf below, tucked behind her folded scrubs, was a small envelope she had not opened in a long time. A label in her own handwriting. Ethan Morales. Her fingers hovered near it, then pulled back. She closed the locker. When she stepped out, Elaine was waiting at the end of the hall. Tyler stood a few feet behind her, hands shoved into his pockets like he did not know what to do with them. Elaine's eyes searched Ava's face. "Do you have what you need?" Ava nodded once, yes. Elaine swallowed, "Okay." Tyler's voice came out rougher than usual. "Dr. Carter." Ava stopped. She looked at him. Tyler's throat worked. "I did not know," he said. The words sounded small in his mouth. Ava held his gaze. "You did not ask." Tyler flinched. He nodded once hard. Ava turned away. Klein was near the doors now, standing with his arms crossed, watching the suited team. His face looked pale under the fluorescent light. When Ava approached, he straightened slightly as if posture could make this easier. "Ava," he said, and the way he said her name was different than before. Less like an assignment. More like a person. Ava did not stop. "This is not a negotiation," she said quietly. Klein's jaw tightened, then loosened. He looked like he wanted to argue, to insist on jurisdiction to cling to control. Instead, he said, "Come back." Ava paused for half a second. She did not promise. She did not refuse. She simply nodded once, a small acknowledgement that she heard him. Outside, the rain had softened to a mist. Pierce stood by the open door of the first vehicle. One of the suited agents held an umbrella that did not quite cover Pierce, as if Pierce did not mind getting wet. Pierce gestured toward the back seat. "After you." Ava stepped into the vehicle. The interior smelled like leather and cold air. She sat upright, hands resting on her thighs. Pierce slid in across from her, closing the door with a firm click that sealed off the hospital sounds. Through the tinted window, Ava watched Cascadia County Medical Center recede. The glass doors, the bright lobby, the cluster of staff still standing there, faces turned toward the convoy. The vehicles rolled forward, tires whispering over wet pavement. Ava kept her eyes on the moving city outside, on the blurred streetlights, on the rain, beating and sliding down the glass. Her watch sat heavy on her wrist, the cracked face catching the light each time they passed under a lamp. Pierce sat quietly reviewing something on a tablet without speaking. Ava did not speak either. Her jaw stayed set. Her breathing stayed measured. The convoy moved through Tacoma with steady momentum, and Ava let the motion carry her, not toward comfort, not toward invisibility, but toward the work that waited. The convoy moved through Tacoma like it had a right-of-way the rain could not argue with. Streetlights smeared across the tinted glass. Water beaded and slid down the window in slow, uneven lines. Ava watched the city pass in fragments, storefronts closed for the evening, a bus hissing at a stop, a couple under one umbrella, leaning into the wind. Her wrist ached where the watch strap sat too tight. The cracked face caught stray light, a thin, glittering line that looked harmless until you stared at it long enough. Across from her, Lauren Pierce scrolled through files on a tablet, eyes, steady posture, straight. She did not speak for several minutes. She let silence do its work. Ava finally broke it. What exactly happened? Pierce did not look up. An explosive device breached the outer security line. Secondary blast inside the compound. She spoke like she had given the briefing already more than once. Most casualties are local staff and visitors. 12 are U.S. personnel in critical condition. Ava kept her gaze on the window. Who is running the surgical team? Lieutenant Colonel Grant Bishop was the trauma lead, Pierce said. He did not make it. Ava's jaw tightened. She did not ask for more. The details would arrive anyway. They always did. The vehicle slowed, then turned. A chain-link fence rose out of the mist, topped with coiled wire. A guard gate lit the rain with hard white beams. The SUV rolled forward, paused, then continued without anyone inside showing an ID. Joint Base Lewis McChord appeared in pieces. Floodlights concrete the dark outlines of aircraft rows of vehicles parked with military neatness. The convoy stopped near a hangar with an open mouth of light spilling onto the wet tarmac. Pierce opened her door. Cold air rushed in. Ava stepped out and the rain hit her face fine and sharp. The wind smelled like jet fuel and damp asphalt. A crew chief approached, helmet tucked under his arm, eyes moving from Pierce to Ava with a quick calculation. His gaze landed on Ava's scrubs, then on her face, then on her wrist. He straightened. Captain Carter. Ava's throat tightened. The title hit like a hand on a bruise. Pierce's voice stayed neutral. Dr. Carter is under orders. The crew chief nodded once, accepting the correction without apology. Yes, ma'am. This way. Ava followed them across the slick tarmac. Each step sounded louder out here. The rain made the world feel both quiet and exposed. Ahead, the transport plane waited with its ramp-lowered interior lights glowing warm against the gray sky. Inside, the air was dry and cold. The sound of engines was a low, steady hum that you felt more than heard. Medics moved between strapped-down crates and equipment racks. Screens glowed along one wall with maps and timestamps. A row of stretchers sat empty for now, ready like teeth. A young medic in a flight suit approached, eyes wide with the kind of nervous respect that comes from reading someone's name in a file. Captain Carter, he started. Ava met his eyes. Dr. Carter, she said. Not harsh, just flat. He swallowed. Yes, ma'am. Doctor, we have the patient briefs ready. 12 critical files. Vitals updates every 10 minutes once we are in range. Blood supply on board for 72 hours. Surgical station is prepped. Ava nodded and moved past him as if she had been here yesterday. She was aware of Pierce walking beside her. Pierce did not crowd her. She simply stayed in step. Ava stopped at the makeshift desk bolted to the floor and set her hands on the edge. Paper files were stacked in neat piles, each with a name, an age, a list of injuries written in block letters. Ava opened the first one. She read fast. Not skimming, absorbing. Penetrating abdominal trauma. Shrapnel to the pelvis. Suspected vascular injury. Hemodynamic instability. She flipped to the next. Blast lung. Rib fractures. Possible cardiac contusion. Another. Open femur fracture. Compartment syndrome risk. Blood loss. 12 lives reduced to lines of ink and numbers. Ava's pulse stayed even. Her mind started building a triage map. Who needed the first incision? Who needed stabilization before transfer? Who could wait barely? Who could not? Pierce watched her work for a moment, then spoke quietly. You do not waste time. Ava did not look up. Time is a luxury. Pierce leaned a hip against a crate, holding her tablet at her side. We pulled you because the team there is breaking. Not because they are weak, because they are outnumbered. Ava turned a page. Everyone is outnumbered in the beginning. A medic passed behind her, carrying a case of supplies. The latch clinked against metal. Ava's fingers tightened on the file for a fraction of a second, then relaxed. She kept reading. The plane's ramp began to rise. The engine tone shifted deeper and stronger. The floor vibrated under Ava's shoes. Pierce moved closer, lowering her voice so only Ava could hear. Can I ask you something? Ava's eyes stayed on the file. You are going to anyway. Pierce nodded once, accepting the answer as permission. Why did you decline reactivation? Ava closed the file slowly. She set it down with care as if the paper could bruise. I told you, Ava said. I left. Pierce waited without pushing. She was good at waiting. Ava stared at her hands. They looked ordinary under the harsh cabin lights. Clean nails, faint calluses. The hands of a doctor, not a soldier. Not a myth. Her watch face glinted when she shifted her wrist. The crack caught the light like a grin. Ava swallowed. There was a night, she said. Kandahar. End of summer. Hot enough that the air felt like it had weight. Pierce's expression did not change. Only her attention sharpened. Ava continued, voice steady, almost clinical. We were running a forward surgical station. Canvas walls, dust on everything. We had been up for, I do not know. Too long. The hum of the plane filled the pause between her sentences. We took an IED strike, Ava said. 4 casualties. All critical. We had 2 tables going and 1 on the floor because there was no space. The youngest was 19. Her throat tightened. She kept her eyes forward. Ethan Morales, she said. He came in talking. That is what I remember first. He was making a joke through clenched teeth, like he thought it would keep him alive. Pierce's brows drew together slightly. Not pity. Focus. Ava's fingers curled on the edge of the desk. Shrapnel to the chest. Punctured lung. Arterial bleed. I had my hands inside him. I could feel his heart. It was fast, then it started to slow. She paused. The plane shook gently as it gained altitude like a long breath. Then the lights went out, Ava said. Pierce did not speak. Ava's voice dropped. Generator failed. Backup was supposed to kick in. It did eventually, but it was not instant. Ava's gaze flicked to her watch. The cracked face stared back. 40 seconds, she said. She said it like a verdict. In the dark, I lost my grip. Ava went on. I could not see the clamp, could not find the vessel. Blood was everywhere. The suction stopped because the power dropped. Someone was yelling, and I could not tell if it was for me or for God. Ava's breath caught. She forced it back into control. When the lights came back, he was gone, she said. Not slowly. Gone. Like a switch. And my hands were still inside his chest, trying to hold on to something that had already left. Pierce's eyes softened, but her voice stayed grounded. That is not a failure of skill. That is equipment in a war zone. Ava's head snapped up. Her eyes flashed. Do not. Pierce stopped. She did not argue. She let the word land. Ava looked away again. Her voice came quieter, stripped. I called his mother, she said. I told her son was brave. I told her he was not alone. I told her we did everything we could. Her lips pressed together. Then I went outside the tent and threw up behind a truck because I could still feel his blood cooling on my skin. Pierce stayed silent. The engines hummed. A medic laughed softly somewhere farther down the bay, a quick sound that died out when it met the heaviness of the cabin. Ava rubbed her thumb across the cracked watch face. After that, she said, every time someone put a life in my hands, I saw him. Not the ones I saved. Him. Pierce's voice was gentle now. So you came here and tried to become invisible. Ava did not deny it. She turned back to the files and opened another. I came here because nobody cared who I used to be, she said. They only cared that I could fill shifts and do paperwork. Pierce watched her. And you let them. Ava's jaw tightened. I needed it. Pierce nodded slowly. You needed less responsibility. Ava's eyes stayed on the page, but the words blurred. I needed to stop carrying names, she said. Or at least stop adding new ones. Pierce did not move closer, but her presence felt nearer. You still carried them, she said. Even in that supply corridor. Ava flipped the file shut. Yes, she replied. I carried them anyway. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The plane pressed forward through dark sky. The cabin lights remained hard and unforgiving. Ava could feel her pulse in her wrist under the watch strap is steady now, like it had decided to do its job, regardless of what her mind wanted. A medic approached with a tablet. He was the same young one from earlier, trying to keep his nerves hidden behind professionalism. Dr. Carter, we are 10 minutes into flight. We have initial vitals transmitted from Dakar. Two patients are dropping pressure. Ava reached for the tablet. Her focus snapped back into place like a door closing. Which ones, she asked. The medic pointed. File 3 and File 7. Ava scanned the numbers, then looked up. Start pre-oxygenation protocols for when they arrive. I want blood typed and cross-matched for all 12, not just the hypotensive ones. If we are short, we prioritize by injury pattern, not by rank. The medic blinked, then nodded quickly. Yes, ma'am. Ava looked at Pierce. I need confirmation on power reliability at the field hospital. Pierce answered immediately. They have generators. They have backup. Ava's eyes stayed sharp. Do they test them under load? Pierce held her gaze for a beat, then nodded once. I will make that call. Ava turned back to the files. Her pen moved across paper, circling, underlining, making notes that were more than notes. They were a map through chaos. Pierce watched her for a moment longer, then spoke softly. Why did you say yes? Ava did not pause her writing. Because there are 12, she said. Because I know what it looks like when a team runs out of hands. Because I know what it feels like to stand over someone and realize you are losing them. She set the pen down and finally looked up. Her eyes were tired, but clear. And because if I said no, Ava added, I would hear Ethan's name every time I closed my eyes. Pierce nodded, accepting that as the truth. The plane's hum deepened as it settled into cruising. Ava opened the next file and kept working, shoulders, squared posture steady. Her watch sat heavy on her wrist, the crack catching light with each small movement. The second hand ticked forward, stuttered once, then continued. Hours later, the cabin lights dimmed slightly. The screens at the wall displayed a shifting map and a countdown to arrival. Ava did not look at the numbers. She did not need them. She could feel distance in her bones. A crew member passed and offered a bottle of water. Ava took it, drank 2 quick swallows and set it down without thinking. Her body accepted fuel like a machine. Her mind stayed on the 12. Near the end of the flight, the plane began its descent. The change in pressure tugged at Ava's ears. The engine tone shifted. The vibration in the floor changed from steady hum to a tighter, lower thrum. Ava closed the last file and stacked them neatly. She stood and rolled her shoulders once, then looked toward the ramp where heat shimmered faintly through a seam in the metal as if the world outside was already pushing in. Pierce stepped beside her again. They are ready on the ground, she said. Ava nodded. Good. The landing gear dropped with a heavy mechanical sound. The plane shuddered as it touched down. For a moment, the cabin rocked, then steadied. Ava did not move until the motion stopped. Then she tightened the strap of her watch one more notch, lifted her chin, and waited by the ramp as the locks released. The ramp groaned as the locks released. Heat poured into the aircraft like a hand shoved under a door. It smelled of dust diesel and scorched metal. Ava stepped down onto the tarmac, and the sun hit her face hard enough to make her blink. Beyond the runway, a row of tents sat inside a fenced compound, lights strung between poles, generators humming with a steady mechanical throat. Trucks moved in slow arcs. People ran with purpose that had no time for panic. A man in stained scrubs met her at the edge of the staging area. His rank patch was damp with sweat. His eyes were red, not from tears, from hours. Dr. Carter, he said, voice hoarse. Major Chris Dwyer. Acting lead. Ava nodded once. Show me the 12. Dwyer looked at Pierce as if to confirm this was real, then turned back to Ava. We have 4 who will not last the night without intervention. 2 are already on pressors. 1 has a suspected pelvic bleed. We cannot control it. Ava's gaze moved past him to the tents. Power. Dwyer blinked. We have generators. 2. Backup on a 3rd. Do you load test them? Ava asked. We run them, he said, like that was the same answer. Ava's jaw tightened. Her fingers brushed the cracked watch on her wrist. The face glinted in the sun. I want them load tested, she said. Now. Full draw. Lights, suction monitors, cautery. Everything. Dwyer stared for a half second, then nodded. Yes, ma'am. Pierce walked beside Ava as they moved toward the main tent. The heat turned the air into something thick. The ground was packed dirt and gravel, worn smooth by boots. Inside the first tent, the world narrowed to beeps, breath sounds, and the smell of blood warmed by humidity. Rows of gurneys filled the space. Monitors blinked. IV bags hung from makeshift stands. Nurses moved with sharp efficiency, faces taut with fatigue. Ava stopped at the entrance and let her eyes sweep. Not lingering, assigning. A young medic hurried up, clipboard shaking slightly. "Dr. Carter, I have updated vitals." Ava took the clipboard. "Who is crashing?" Patient 7 dropped pressure again. Patient 3 is trending down. Ava turned to Dwyer. "I want patient 7 in the first bay closest to the surgical station. Patient 3 in the second. Get me your best nurse on each and put someone on airway who does not freeze." Dwyer called orders down the line. The team moved faster, relieved to have a voice that did not waver. Ava stepped to the first gurney, a man with ash on his hair, eyes, half-open lips, pale. A dressing over his lower abdomen, soaked through in a spreading dark bloom. "Name?" Ava asked. "Staff Sergeant Lucas Bennett," the medic said. "Blast injury, abdominal and pelvic. Suspected vascular bleed. No CT." Ava's hands moved, pressing, checking. The skin was clammy. The pulse was fast and thin. She leaned in and spoke where the man could hear. "Sergeant Bennett," she said. "I am Dr. Carter. You are going to feel people moving around you. Keep breathing. Stay with me." His eyes flicked toward her. A faint squeeze of his fingers answered. Ava straightened. "Damage control," she said to the team. "We do not chase perfection. We stop the bleeding, we control contamination, we get him warm." A nurse nodded, already pulling instruments. A medic slid a bag valve mask closer, ready. Ava glanced up. "Where is your blood?" A cooler was rolled in. Ava flipped the lid, checked labels, and nodded once. Outside, the generator test began. The lights in the tent brightened, then settled. The suction on the wall gave a steady hiss. A monitor beeped, then beeped again, consistent. Ava did not relax. Not yet. She scrubbed at a basin, water running brown at first from dust on her arms. The scrub brush scratched at her skin. She dried, gloved, and stepped to the table. The first incision was clean. The body opened like it always did, as if it had been waiting for permission to show the damage. Blood welled immediately, dark and urgent. "Suction," Ava said. The line hissed, steady. "Pack," she said. Sponges disappeared into the cavity. Ava's hands moved without drama, finding the source, feeling the pulse of a vessel that should not be pulsing free. Dwyer stood opposite, her eyes locked on her hands. "There," he said, pointing. Ava did not look up. "I see it." She clamped. Pressure eased. The bleeding slowed to a manageable seep. "Temp shunt," Ava said. "Now." A medic hesitated. "We have one." "Then do not waste it," Ava replied. They placed it. The vessel held. The monitor steadied. Ava did not celebrate. She moved on, tying off what needed tying, leaving what could wait. She closed fast, not pretty functional. "ICU tent," she ordered. "Warming blanket, keep him dry. Labs every hour." They rolled Bennett out. His eyes were still open. He watched her as they moved him. Ava met his gaze for half a second and nodded once, a silent promise she did not speak. Patient 3 came in next, a woman with shrapnel across her chest and neck, breath gurgling. A chest dressing bubbled with each exhale. "Tube," Ava said. A nurse prepared. Ava inserted with controlled speed, not rushing, not slow. Air released with a sound like a trapped animal finally freed. The woman's oxygen number climbed. Ava looked to the medic. Blood pressure, still low but rising. "Keep it rising," Ava said. "Warm fluids, pain control, and do not let her drift off. Talk to her." Hours blurred into motion. Someone shoved a granola bar into Ava's hand, and she ate it without tasting. Someone handed her water, and she drank because her mouth was dry. Her watch face caught light every time she moved. The crack stayed where it always was. A medic approached, face tight. "Dr. Carter, patient 7 is crashing again. We think cardiac." Ava was already walking. Patient 7 was a man with soot streaked across his chest, a bandage on his side, breath shallow. His monitor showed a racing heart. His neck veins bulged. His skin looked gray under the tent lights. Ava placed the ultrasound probe on his chest. The image flickered, then appeared. Fluid, dark, tight around the heart. Dwyer's voice went thin. "We drained one like this back home. Not here." Ava kept her gaze on the screen. "Get the kit." A nurse ran. The tent was hotter now. The generator hum sat under everything, a constant vibration. Ava felt the old memory press against her ribs. Canvas. Darkness. 40 seconds. She pushed it down by focusing on details. Angle. Depth. Anatomy. The kit arrived. Ava prepped, needle poised. The lights flickered once. Just once. A ripple went through the room. The suction hiss shifted, then steadied. Someone cursed under their breath. Ava froze for a fraction of a second. Not her hands, her mind. The crack in her watch face flashed. 40 seconds leapt inside her bones. She forced her breath in. Slow. Controlled. "Backup lights," she said, voice firm. "Headlamps on. Now." A medic flicked on a battery lamp, bright white. Another pulled a headlamp strap over his forehead and switched it on. The light hit the patient's chest, cleanly. Ava looked at Dwyer. "Tell me the generators are stable." Dwyer swallowed. They switched load. Backup picked it up. "We are good." Ava nodded once. She did not ask him to swear. She moved. "Needle in. Aspirate." Dark blood filled the syringe. The patient's chest rose with a deeper breath. The monitor eased. The room exhaled as one. Ava stepped back, stripped her gloves, and immediately replaced them. "Next patient," she said. The work did not stop. It did not allow meaning. It allowed only tasks. A leg that needed a tourniquet and fasciotomy before the muscle died. A shattered jaw that needed an airway secured before swelling closed it. A blast lung that required careful ventilation so the damaged tissue did not tear. A child, local staff, maybe 13, with glass embedded in her abdomen, eyes fixed on Ava with a fear too old for her age. Ava crouched beside the girl, speaking softly. "You will feel sleepy soon. When you wake up, you will still be here. Do you understand?" The girl nodded, tears sliding down her temples into her hair. Ava looked at the nurse. "Stay with her. Tell her your name. Keep talking." The nurse nodded, voice breaking slightly as she introduced herself. The first night bled into morning without anyone noticing. The sun rose outside the tent in pale heat. Ava caught it only because the light shifted through the fabric and made everything look washed out. Pierce appeared near the entrance, jacket gone, sleeves rolled up, hair damp with sweat. She held a tablet. "All 12 are still alive," Pierce said quietly. Ava did not look up from the patient she was assessing. "How many are stable?" 8 trending stable. 4 are still critical." Ava nodded once. "Then we keep going." At some point, someone offered Ava a cot. She sat for 2 minutes, head tipped forward, eyes closed. The moment her watch pressed into her wrist, she opened her eyes again. She stood and walked back into the noise. By hour 40, her body felt like it belonged to someone else. Her hands stayed sure. Her back ached. Her eyelids burned. She washed blood from her forearms and watched it swirl down the drain, then scrubbed until her skin reddened. A nurse tried to hand her a clean set of scrubs. Ava shook her head. Later, her voice sounded calm. It cost her more than she let show. On the third day, the generator hummed steady. The lights held. The suction stayed strong. The monitors beeped in patterns that were no longer frantic, more patient, more forgiving. Ava stood at the foot of the last gurney, reading a set of vitals that finally held their line. Dwyer approached, eyes raw, mouth trembling with something like relief. "Dr. Carter," he said. "They are stable. All 12. They are stable." Ava stared at the numbers as if they might change if she believed them too quickly. She checked the chart again. Then again. Still holding. She set the clipboard down slowly. Her hands did not shake. Her knees felt like they might. Ava stepped out of the main tent into the heat. The air outside was thick and bright. Dust floated in sunlight. Somewhere beyond the fence, the city moved in the distance, unaware of this pocket of work and blood and survival. She lifted her wrist and looked at her watch. The second hand ticked forward. It did not stutter. It did not stop. It simply moved. Ava let out a breath she had been holding for hours and stood there in the light, sweat drying on her skin, listening to the steady hum of generators that did not fail. The field compound in Dakar kept humming after Ava stepped away from the tents. Generators stayed steady. Trucks rolled. Medics moved with purpose that had learned how to breathe again. Ava stood outside in the heat, with dried blood at the edge of her sleeve, and sweat cooling on her neck, watching her watch tick cleanly for once. Lauren Pierce walked up beside her tablet tucked under her arm. "They're asking for a statement," Pierce said. Ava did not look at her. "Tell them the patients are stable. That's the statement." Pierce nodded like she expected that. "They'll want a name." Ava's jaw tightened. "They already have it." Pierce studied her for a beat. "You did what you came to do." Ava's fingers brushed the cracked glass on her wrist. "I did what was in front of me." Pierce did not push. She only stood with Ava long enough for the silence to settle, then stepped away to make the calls that would turn blood and hours into official language. Ava went back inside, not to operate, not yet, just to walk the lanes between gurneys, checking straps, checking drips, checking the small details that kept a body from slipping back into the dark. She spoke low to a nurse changing a dressing. She adjusted an oxygen mask. She told a medic to double-check the backup batteries again, then again. When she finally sat, it was on a folding chair against a tent pole. Her shoulders loosened and pain spread through her back like a wave that had been waiting for permission. She closed her eyes for 10 seconds and saw nothing but the inside of her eyelids. A hand touched her forearm lightly. It was Dwyer. His face looked older than it had 3 days ago. "They're asking about you," he said. Ava opened her eyes. "They can ask." He hesitated. "You're going to be on the news." Ava's expression stayed flat. "I don't have a television." Dwyer gave a tired laugh that ended too quickly. Still, Ava shifted her wrist. The watch face caught the light. "People forget fast," she said. Dwyer looked at her like he wanted to argue, then decided he didn't have the energy. He nodded once and walked away. 2 weeks later, rain fell on Tacoma again. Cascadia County Medical Center looked the same from the outside. Gray sky, wet pavement, fluorescent glow behind glass. Inside, the emergency department moved through another morning shift. Trauma bays filled and emptied. Phones rang. Nurses called out vitals. Residents argued about imaging. But a different kind of quiet lived underneath the noise now. The kind that settles after a shock. The kind that waits. Dr. Howard Klein sat in his office with the door open, pretending he was working. The laptop on his desk showed a news site. The headline stared back at him in clean black letters. "Army surgeon stabilizes 12 after Dakar consulate attack." Below it was a photo. Ava in uniform. Her face was smeared with grime. Her eyes were tired. Her hair was pulled back tight. There was blood on the sleeves of her scrubs, and the set of her mouth looked like she had decided something and refused to let it go. Behind her, a canvas tent and a medic carrying a cooler. The world around her was blurred, as if the camera had only been able to focus on the one person who didn't move. Klein read the article once, then again. It used phrases he would have scoffed at if someone had tried to sell them in a hiring packet. Forward surgical team lead. Reserve commission. Highly trained trauma surgeon. Critical interventions performed under limited resources. He scrolled down and saw the line that made his stomach tighten. All 12 survived. Klein leaned back and rubbed his face with both hands. The office smelled like paper and stale coffee. The sound of the department drifted in through the open door. Normal life. A knock tapped the doorframe. "Come in," Klein said. Tyler Brooks stepped inside, shoulders tense, as if he expected to be yelled at. He closed the door halfway behind him and waited. Klein turned the laptop toward him. "Read it." Tyler's eyes moved across the screen. The color drained from his face. "That's her," Tyler said, voice low. Klein watched him. "Yes." Tyler swallowed. "I didn't know." Klein's gaze stayed steady. "No. You didn't ask." Tyler's jaw tightened. "I thought she was, I don't know, quiet, new, different." Klein felt the word different land like a bruise. And what did you do with that? Tyler stared at the photo. I called her lucky. Klein's mouth pressed into a line. He could still hear his own voice in his memory, telling Ava to keep it simple, assigning her to inventory, treating her like a risk to be managed. Klein closed the laptop slowly. You know what the problem is, he said. Tyler's shoulders rose with a breath. We missed it, he replied. Klein nodded once. We missed her. Tyler looked up, eyes flicking to Klein's face like he was searching for what kind of meeting this was. Punishment or confession? Klein's voice stayed even. Go back out there, he said, and start listening. Not for the right answer. For the person. Tyler hesitated. Do you think she'll come back? Klein did not answer that. He simply looked past Tyler toward the department where Ava's workstation sat empty like a missing tooth. Tyler left quietly. Later that day, Klein called for a full staff meeting. Mandatory. No excuses. The conference room filled with attendings, residents, nurses, techs. People came in clusters talking softly, then stopped talking when they saw Klein's face. Elaine Parker stood near the back with her arms folded, expression unreadable. Tyler sat in the second row, shoulders hunched, staring at the table. Klein stood at the front with a printed sheet of paper in his hand. He waited until the last chair scraped into place. This is about Dr. Ava Carter, he said. A hush settled. Klein held up the paper. Most of you have seen the article. Some of you have not. I'm going to read part of it. He did not dramatize it. He read in the same voice he used to give instructions in trauma, clear and controlled. The words filled the room anyway. Dakar. 12, critical. 72 hours. Stabilized. Survived. He set the paper down. For months, Klein continued she worked here in this hospital. She stocked supply shelves. She updated templates. She took inventory. She did the work nobody wanted to do. She also saved patients. Quietly. Cleanly. Without asking permission. His eyes moved across the room. Faces dropped. Some looked away. Some stared back like they had been punched. Klein's voice tightened just slightly. And we treated her like she didn't belong. Nobody interrupted. The room held its breath. Klein went on. Effective immediately new hire evaluations will include blind skills assessment. No name, no photo, no assumptions. Competence first. A murmur moved, not disagreement, surprise. Klein raised a hand, not to silence, to steady. We will also review assignment practices. Who gets trauma? Who gets pushed to paperwork? Who gets treated like an extra pair of hands instead of a physician? Elaine's chin lifted a fraction, like she had been waiting to hear those words out loud. A resident near the middle raised a hand slowly. What do we do individually? Klein met the resident's eyes. When someone speaks up, he said, you pause before you dismiss. When you realize you were wrong, you say it. And you change how you move through the room. Tyler's gaze dropped to the table. His fingers tightened around his pen until the knuckles showed. The meeting ended without applause. People filed out quietly, the kind of quiet that felt heavier than noise. Elaine stayed behind. Klein looked up when she approached. Yes, he said, already tired. Elaine's voice was calm. That was necessary. Klein nodded. It wasn't enough. Elaine studied him. No. Klein exhaled. What do you want? Elaine reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. She tapped the screen and turned it toward him. It was a photo. Ava, in the hallway on a night shift weeks ago, standing near the trauma doors with her hands in her pockets, eyes forward, face tired and steady. She looked like someone who had learned how to carry weight without letting it show. I want this in the main corridor, Elaine said. With the article. With her name. Not as gossip, as fact. So nobody forgets what we almost turned away. Klein stared at the photo. His throat worked. Do it, he said. Elaine printed it. She framed it. She pinned the article beside it with a simple label. Dr. Ava Carter. By the next morning, staff slowed in the corridor to read. Some stood for a long time. Some touched the frame lightly, like it might burn. A tech wiped at her eyes and kept walking. A resident read the headline twice. and then stared at Ava's face like it didn't match the memory in his head of the quiet doctor in the supply corridor. Tyler stopped there on his way into shift. He stared at the photo without moving. His shoulders were tense, as if he were bracing for impact. A new intern walked up beside him, eyes wide. "Did you work with her?" the intern asked. Tyler swallowed. "Yes," he said. "What was she like?" Tyler's mouth tightened. He looked at the framed photo again, then at the article, then down at his own hands. "Better than I let myself see," he said. He walked away. In the days that followed, the changes started small. Klein began showing up to morning rounds earlier. Not to talk, to listen. Tyler asked more questions in trauma bays. He stopped interrupting nurses mid-sentence. A resident who usually stayed quiet in meetings spoke up once, and nobody laughed. Elaine ran a workshop in a break room after shift change, expecting a handful of people. The room filled. Klein watched from the back, arms folded face tight, as if he had finally realized how easily a system could fail by doing nothing at all. One evening after the department slowed, Klein sat in his office and opened a new email. He stared at the blank message for a long time before he typed anything. He wrote her name, Dr. Ava Carter. His fingers hovered over the keys. His throat tightened. He typed again, slower this time, as if each word had weight. He stopped. He deleted 2 sentences. He started over. In the end, the message was simple, not polished, not defensive. An apology, an offer, a promise of change that would have to survive more than a meeting. Klein read it twice, then stared at the send button as if it were a door he wasn't sure he had the right to open. He clicked. The message disappeared into the outbox. Klein leaned back and listened to the sound of the emergency department beyond his door. The familiar hum of fluorescent lights, the distant beep of a monitor, the soft roll of a cart over tile, and the quiet underneath it all that had finally started to listen. Klein checked his inbox more times than he cared to admit. Between traumas, between phone calls, between the small daily fires that never stopped burning. He would close the laptop, open it again, and act surprised that the screen had not changed. Days passed. The framed photo in the corridor gathered fingerprints on the glass. People kept stopping. Not as often as the first morning, but often enough that it never became background. Elaine watched it without hovering. She saw the pauses, the swallowed apologies that never made it to speech. She saw Tyler Brooks slow down every time his eyes dropping to the floor, like he was trying to find a place to put his hands. On the 5th day, Klein's phone rang while he was reviewing bed assignments. He glanced at the screen and felt his chest tighten. Unknown number. He answered anyway. Dr. Klein. A familiar voice came through, calm and level. Dr. Klein, this is Ava Carter. Klein sat up straighter. His chair creaked. The hallway noise outside his office door sounded suddenly far away. Ava, he said, then corrected himself fast. Dr. Carter, thank you for calling. Silence held for a beat. I received your email, Ava said. Klein's throat went dry. I meant every word. I know, she replied. Her tone did not soften, but it was not sharp either. It was controlled. I am calling because I am willing to return. Klein closed his eyes for half a second. Relief moved through him so fast it felt almost like dizziness. Thank you, he said. Do not, Ava replied. Not yet. Klein opened his eyes. Okay. Ava's voice stayed steady. One condition. Klein did not hesitate. Name it. Real change, Ava said. Not a meeting. Not a poster. Not a workshop people attend once and then forget. The assignments. The evaluations. The way residents are corrected. The way nurses are listened to. The way someone with an accent is treated in a room full of assumptions. Klein swallowed. You have my word. Ava paused. Your word is not a policy. Klein's grip tightened on the phone. He forced his voice to stay even. Then we write it into policy. And we enforce it. I will do that. Ava held the silence long enough that Klein could hear his own breathing. 2 weeks, Ava said. I will need 2 weeks. Klein nodded even though she could not see it. We will be ready. The call ended. Klein stared at the phone in his hand as if it were proof that the last months had actually happened. Then he stood, walked out of his office, and headed straight toward the charge desk. He did not raise his voice. He did not posture. He simply said, "Staff meeting in 10 minutes. Everyone." They gathered again a little faster this time, because the room had learned what it felt like to be wrong. Klein stood at the front. Elaine leaned against the back wall. Tyler sat near the aisle, shoulders tense, eyes forward. "Dr. Ava Carter is returning," Klein said, "in 2 weeks." A murmur moved through the room, relief for some, shame for others, curiosity for the rest. Klein raised a hand. "She is returning on one condition: change that holds." He looked at Tyler for a fraction of a second, then scanned the room. "Effective, immediately trauma assignments will be based on demonstrated skill and updated competency review, not seniority alone and not familiarity. Blind assessments begin this week. I am assigning an oversight committee. Elaine Parker will chair it." Elaine's expression did not change. She nodded once. Klein continued, "Any concerns about safety bias or dismissal of a colleague's clinical input will be documented and reviewed. Not as punishment, as correction. We do not get better by pretending we are already good." No one argued. The room felt heavier, but it also felt clearer. 2 weeks later, dawn came to Tacoma with the same rain and the same gray sky. Cascadia County Medical Center looked unchanged from the outside. Inside, the emergency department waited in quiet readiness. Elaine stood near the nurse's station with a cup of coffee that had gone lukewarm. She watched the entrance more than she watched the monitors. She told herself it was nothing. She told herself she was only curious. When Ava Carter walked in, the air shifted. Not because she demanded it, because the room recognized it. Ava wore a clean coat over professional attire. Her hair was pulled back tight. A badge clipped at her lapel read in plain black text, "Director of Trauma Services." Her face looked rested in the way a person looks when they have stopped fighting sleep and started choosing it. Her eyes were still tired, just less haunted. Klein met her near the entry to the trauma bays. He looked like a man who had rehearsed this moment and still did not trust himself with it. "Dr. Carter," he said. "Ava is fine," she replied, then added, "at least outside a code." Klein nodded a small release of tension. "Welcome back." Ava's gaze moved past him to the department. Residents charting, nurses moving, a trauma cart stocked properly, a new board near the charge desk listing on call rolls with clear criteria beside each name. She looked back at Klein. "Show me what changed." Klein did not defend himself. He gestured. "Start with morning rounds." They walked through the department together. People straightened. Some greeted her. Some simply watched. Ava did not soak it in. She did not reject it either. She moved like someone who had decided she would not shrink to make others comfortable. At the first trauma bay, a resident started to explain a case and stumbled. Ava waited. She did not rescue him with interruption. She let him find his footing. When he finished, Ava asked one question. "What are you missing?" The resident blinked, then glanced at the chart. His cheeks flushed. "I did not check the medication list for blood thinners." Ava nodded. "Fix that. Then tell me what it changes." He hurried off, not embarrassed, motivated. Elaine watched the exchange and felt her mouth curve into something like satisfaction. Later, Tyler approached. He moved slower than he used to, as if speed was no longer his favorite tool. He stood near Ava's office door with a folder in his hand and a tightness around his eyes. Ava looked up from her screen. On her desk sat a framed photo of a faded cloth tab. Ranger Medical. The frayed edges were still there. The cloth looked older than it had any right to look. Tyler noticed it and looked away quickly. "You have a minute," Ava said. Tyler entered and shut the door carefully behind him. He stayed standing. Ava gestured to the chair. "Sit." Tyler sat, then immediately looked like he wanted to stand again. "I never apologized," he said. Ava waited. Tyler swallowed. "I called your work luck. I dismissed you. I ignored you when you tried to warn me. I made you smaller because it was easier for me if you stayed small." His voice tightened on the last word. He blinked hard as if anger was trying to take the place of regret. Ava's expression stayed calm. "Why?" she asked. Tyler stared at his hands. "Because I was scared," he said. Not of you. Of being wrong. Of losing control in a room where I thought control was the same thing as competence. Ava leaned back slightly. Control is not competence, she said. Tyler nodded fast. I know. Ava studied him for a moment, then spoke. I do not need you to like me. I need you to listen in a trauma bay. Tyler's jaw tightened. You will get that. Ava nodded once. Good. Tyler stood and hesitated at the door. I am glad you came back, he said. Ava did not answer with comfort. She answered with truth. Then act like it. Tyler left. Weeks passed. Cascadia changed in small, visible ways. The blind assessments became routine, not a spectacle. Residents started asking nurses for input without being prompted. Klein showed up to trauma debriefs and spoke last. Elaine ran mentorship sessions after shift change, and the room stayed full. One morning, a new physician arrived. Dr. Marisol Vega's sharp eyes, calm hands, a slight Puerto Rican lilt in her voice that used to have people making assumptions before she even reached a bedside. Klein met her at the entrance and shook her hand with steady respect. Trauma is yours, he said. No probation, i.e., no proving. Marisol blinked, then smiled. Thank you. Ava watched from the nurse's station and felt something in her chest loosen. In the main corridor, the framed photo of Ava stayed on the wall, but it was no longer alone. Elaine had added more frames beside it, each with a name and a short story. A nurse who had worked nights for 15 years and trained half the department. A physician who came up through foster care and now ran pediatric emergency. A tech who spoke 3 languages and made scared families feel seen. Ava stopped there one morning after rounds. She read them quietly. Elaine walked up beside her and held out a fresh cup of coffee. It's catching on, she said. Ava took the coffee. Good. Elaine glanced at the frames. People needed proof. Ava sipped, then looked at her own photo. The tired face, the steady eyes, the version of her that had been doing inventory while trying not to exist. She looked down at her wrist. The cracked watch face glinted under the hallway light. The second hand ticked forward steady. Klein approached, stopping a respectful distance away. I want to show you something, he said. Ava followed him down a corridor that used to lead to storage. Now it opened into a renovated wing. Bright lights, new equipment, clean lines, a new set of doors with a plaque mounted beside them. The plaque read Cascadia Trauma Center, dedicated to those who serve with skill, courage, and care. Ava's eyes held on the word serve for a long moment. Her throat tightened. She did not look away. Klein spoke quietly. This was already in motion, he said. We finished it. We named it the way we could. We did not use your name. Ava nodded once. The air felt thick in her chest, not painful, just full. Thank you, she said. Klein's voice went rough. No, thank you. Ava turned back toward the doors. Her reflection caught in the glass for a moment. Older, tired, present. Later in her office, Ava sat alone and opened the bottom drawer of her desk. Inside was a small envelope, plain worn at the edges. Ethan Morales, written in her handwriting. She did not open it. She did not hide it deeper, either. She set it back where it was and closed the drawer gently. Her phone buzzed. A message from Elaine. Coffee after shift. There's a resident I want you to meet. Ava stared at the screen, then typed a short reply. Okay. She set the phone down and looked at the framed Ranger Medical tab, the frayed threads, the faded letters, the proof of a life that had not disappeared no matter how hard she tried to make it. Outside her office, the department moved in steady rhythm. Voices, footsteps, monitors. The controlled noise of people doing work that mattered. If you enjoyed this story, take a second to leave a comment with where you are watching from and hit like and subscribe so you do not miss the next story.